Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome to another 7-star character review. Today we're going to be taking a look at Redbeard. Now, it is going to take quite a while to get this character to 7 stars since you can only get a maximum of 3 tiles every day for this character if you are completing your daily activities. Now, if you are completing your dailies every single day, it will take you 147 days from the time you started playing to get this character to 7 stars. So it's definitely going to take quite a while, but the good thing is Redbeard is quite effective even at 4, 5, 6 stars. Honestly, he's one of the best characters in the entire game. In my updated tier list, it's going to be coming out here shortly. I've moved him up to Platinum from Gold tier, which is where he was last time. Redbeard is also one of the best plug-and-play characters in the game. He can work in pretty much every single team. Of course, he's mainly going to work really well in a pirate team, but he also does really well with others like the King's Court Trio. Often I see the King's Court Trio, Magisto, Jester, Burnibus running with Redbeard and then a 5th unit. Also, he can actually be a pretty effective counter to King's Court teams as well because he has a lot of control with his abilities. That's the thing about Redbeard. Every single one of his abilities is really powerful, so he's never going to be using an ability that won't do much. Even his basic attack is one of the best basics in the entire game. This ability will have a 60% chance to inflict disarmed on the target enemy for 2 turns, and he'll also do a bit of damage as well. Redbeard is actually a really solid attacker and also a support unit because he has a lot of control elements, and he even has a bit of healing as well, but he does quite a bit of damage, especially as you get him to a higher star level, and also his ultimate will do insane amounts of damage, like upwards of 7-8k, along with inflicting tons of debuffs. But we'll come to that ability in just a second. So as you'll notice here later on, Redbeard will have a lot of chances to either counterattack or assist, and whenever he does, he's going to be using his basic, and he will have that chance to apply disarmed. Often you can get disarmed going on multiple enemies at one time, which can really help lock down teams and completely stop them in their tracks. His first special ability is one of the only full team cleanses in the entire game, so you can remove debuffs from your own team. He will clear 3 random debuffs from all heroes, and then he'll grant pirate heroes skill up 2, which will increase their chance of applying debuffs on enemies, which buccaneers are very dependent on, and then it will clear all other remaining debuffs on pirates. Then it will heal buccaneer heroes for 10% of their max health, plus a 5% bonus heal for each foe inflicted with a debuff. So again, this is a really solid ability. You'll clear debuffs from your entire team, and then you'll also heal buccaneer allies, and it's actually a somewhat substantial heal because chances are that at least a couple enemies will have debuffs, but this heal can get all the way up to 35%, a 35% heal if all of the enemies had debuffs, which actually happens more times than you would guess. His second special ability is his shark attack, and this is where more control comes into play. He'll deal 165% damage, which is actually quite a bit, and then he'll inflict 2 stacks of damage over time for 2 turns. That's not going to make a huge difference, but the really interesting part is if the enemy had 3 or more buffs, or if the enemy is Justice, he will inflict stun on them, which cannot be resisted. Stun is the single most powerful debuff in the entire game, and it will completely lock down a character for 1 turn. It'll stop them from assisting, it'll stop them from counterattacking, it'll make them miss their next turn, and also it will disable their passive abilities. So if you get a stun on Jester, he won't heal his allies when he is damaged. If you get a stun on, let's say, Zombie will not revive because it locks down and completely stops their passive abilities. So stun is insanely powerful and very useful both in Arena and also in the campaigns. You'll actually notice that Redbeard is one of the most effective characters for the Glyph Hunt campaign. And he's very useful in the last 3 very difficult battles, 6.6, 6.8, and 6.8.4 in Glyph Hunt, because he has so much control with his basic ability and this shark attack ability. I'm actually working on a walkthrough video right now for those 3 battles, and Redbeard is a core part of my strategy. Also, one other thing I wanted to really quickly mention before we move on to the next ability is the 3+ buffs might seem uncommon, but it happens more times than you would expect, especially versus King's Court teams. They thrive on buffs, and typically, like Jester will have Taunt and Payback and all kinds of other buffs from Magisto and whatnot, so it is pretty common that they will have enough buffs for that stun to land, and if not, you can just use his basic attack instead, which will still have that chance at applying Disarmed, which is still quite powerful. Moving on to his passive ability now, this is the ability I was talking about earlier that would give him a chance to counterattack. Basically, whenever another pirate takes damage, Redbeard will have a 30% chance to counterattack against the attacking foe, and if it's a Buccaneer, it'll be a 60% chance. So that'll happen pretty often. I mean, it's every time a Buccaneer will take damage, it's a 60% chance for him to counterattack, and every time he does, he's going to be using his basic, and that increases the chance that he will apply Disarmed. And pretty often, you'll actually get disarmed on multiple foes at one time, which, like I mentioned earlier, really helps to lock down the enemy team. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this will not work when going up against Lloyd, because he will give stealth to the entire team, and when a unit is under stealth, they cannot be counterattacked. So Lloyd can actually be a pretty effective counter to Redbeard in a pirate team, because the stealth will prevent the counterattacks. At least it will prevent that part of his kit. Redbeard is still going to be great with all of his other abilities, but he won't be counterattacking as much. And then at the end of his turn, if Redbeard had a debuff, he will have a 50% chance to inflict one of his debuffs on the foe with the lowest number of debuffs. So just more debuff synergy, more debuff spam, and this is going to synergize. It's going to work really well with the rest of the Buccaneers, since almost all of their abilities have some kind of synergy with the number of debuffs on the enemy team. And then finally we have his ultimate ability, which is one of the best ultimates in the entire game. To start, he will deal 275% damage to the target foe. He actually has a pretty high base attack of 2,226 when at 7 stars, gear 6, level 50. So 275%, if you get a critical hit, that's going to be an insane amount of damage. Then he will inflict a bunch of debuffs, but before he does that, he will actually clear debuff immunity from the foe if they had it, and that will just guarantee that these debuffs will land. So he will inflict Grit down 2 and Speed down 2 for 3 turns, and Clumsy. Clumsy means their next attack will miss, and these debuffs cannot be resisted, so Grit Up will not help them resist these debuffs. They are going to land no matter what. And then each other foe that had 3 or more debuffs will be inflicted with Grit down 2 and Speed down 2 for 3 turns, as well as Clumsy. So the Grit down 2 is going to help the rest of your pirates land more debuffs, and it's for 3 turns, so that's quite a long duration, and Speed down 2 will make the enemies much, much slower, and this is actually one of the best debuffs in the game, and that is also for 3 turns, and then again Clumsy, which will make them miss their next attack. So a really effective ultimate ability. It can do like upwards of 7,000 damage when at the max level. I think I've seen it do around 8,000 if it's a critical hit and he had offense up. So again, not only does he have a lot of control in his kit, but he also does a pretty substantial amount of damage. So as we've talked about earlier, Redbeard is going to work really well in a pirate team, specifically a Buccaneer team. That's really where he's going to shine, but he can also work in a lot of other teams. I'm personally using an interesting combination of Ninjago and Pirates with Lloyd and Kai, and then Redbeard, Scarlet, and Cook Bart. And this team has been doing really well for me, both on offense and defense. And as you can see, Redbeard is plugged into a lot of other teams, a lot of castle teams, and he really can be used in just about any team. So one combo that works really well is Redbeard and Scarlet, or Redbeard and Valiant plugged into a team with some other units, because that pirate, either Scarlet or Valiant, will be taunting, and then when they're damaged, Redbeard will have that chance to counterattack and can really spread the disarmed on the entire enemy team, unless of course you are going up against Lloyd. Now, not a lot of players are going to have Scarlet, but if you do have her, that combo is pretty effective. But it can also work with Valiant. The chance will only be 30% for him to counterattack with Valiant, because Valiant is not a Buccaneer, so it might not be as effective, but it's still worth keeping in mind. So there are two main sets that Redbeard is going to work really well in. There's Raft Raiders and Forbidden Island. Raft Raiders is much better early on. It's a pretty early farm and is pretty effective for a pirate team even later on, but I think long-term Forbidden Island is going to be much, much better, especially once we can get these abilities above level 3. Now, currently these are soft-locked at level 3 because to increase it to level 4 or level 5, you need tier 3 set tools, and those tier 3s are only available from the master shop, and the conversion rate for tiles is pretty terrible there, and you should be buying Willa tiles anyway. So until those tier 3 set tools become farmable on maybe a Monolith Waste Node or something, you're not going to be able to increase the abilities above level 3. But once we are able to, at level 5, this first ability here will give a 40% attack increase to Buccaneers. So basically, Imperials are going to get a 20% increase, and Buccaneers, since they have both tags, are going to get a 40% increase. The fourth ability here is also going to give a pretty substantial boost to Redbeard. At the 5th level, he's going to have a 50% chance to do a bonus attack, and a 10% chance per debuff foe to inflict a stack of Time Bomb. Now, the thing about this ability is he will have that chance to attack again, even on bonus attacks, so theoretically he could keep attacking over and over and over. At level 3 it's going to be less likely since it's a 30% chance, but once those set tools become farmable and we can increase this ability to level 5, he's going to have that chance to attack again, and that's going to greatly increase the chance that the Disarmed is actually applied. And then he's also going to have this chance to inflict Time Bombs, and I believe Time Bombs do 20% max health damage to the target enemy. And there's also some Time Bomb synergy in the third ability. At the 3rd level, whenever a Buccaneer hero deals damage to a foe, they will have a 30% chance to inflict 2 stacks of Time Bomb on the target for 3 turns. So every time Redbeard is attacking, he's going to have this chance to apply Time Bombs, and if this does trigger, it's going to be 2 stacks, and when that goes off after 3 turns, it will take a little while, but once it does, I believe it will do 40% max health damage to them, and if they have more than 2 stacks of Time Bomb, it could be 100% max health damage if there's just 5 stacks. That can completely wipe out a character. Like I said earlier, the Raft Raiders is also a pretty solid set. The 2nd and 3rd ability don't really do too much, so you can pretty much ignore those abilities, but the first one is the really interesting one. At the max level, it says whenever a pirate hero deals damage, one random hero has a 25% chance to assist and deal 30% damage, and if they are a pirate, they have a plus 15% bonus chance to assist. So it's a 40% chance for pirates to assist whenever a pirate hero deals damage. That means assists can be called off of the assists, and it can just keep going and going and going. So again, when paired with Redbeard and all his counterattacking, this is just going to increase the overall damage output and debuffs and whatnot, because characters are just going to be constantly assisting, especially if they are pirates. So this can be really effective, but I think long-term the Forbidden Island is going to be much better. So it is going to take you a while to get Redbeard to 7 stars. Like I mentioned earlier, it's 147 days if you're doing all your dailies every day. But in the meantime, should you be leveling up and gearing this character? Definitely. Even at a lower star level, he's very effective both in Arena and especially for the Glyph Hunt campaign. So overall, one of the best characters in the game. He's a slow farm, but I highly recommend that you start working on him. Alright, thanks for watching.